Super Bowl was a great game. Chiefs pulled her out. They were down 24-14 at halftime. There was I don't know if you guys have seen this because it was just filed like not too long ago that the Philadelphia Police Department has filed a missing persons report for the Eagles defensive line. They were nowhere to be found. They've been looking in Arizona, still can't find them. They weren't even on the flight back. So we don't know where the Eagles defensive line is. Have you guys seen them at all? Did they make it up to Minneapolis? Did they think that the Super Bowl was in Minneapolis from the last time, or where were they?
Well, now that you mentioned that, Dylan, the search has actually gone to the federal level. Oh. The FBI branch in Philadelphia has joined on this investigation because it's such a bad case of a missing person, and to have 7 people go missing is just so egregious. I wonder, have we checked Gronk Beach? Did those guys party all weekend and they're still there somewhere in Old Scottsdale, passed out on a bus bench because they had too much fun? I mean, Ethan, you've been to Old Scottsdale. You say it's a riot. Maybe they got lost there.
I'd say it'd be a terrible decision.
No, I mean, Bottled Blonde, you got Dirks Bentley Whiskey Row.
They're probably
it's a great place.
Gilligan's.
Hey, yeah, Gilligan's another one.
Is that the plunger place, Ethan?
Yes, it is. With the giant spin.
Is that that's the plunger place? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Place is heaven.
So maybe we should check Old Scottsdale.
Yeah, that might be the play. I might send out some. I think I still have some. I got some family there. I can go send them out on patrol, see if they can find them there. But yeah,
like I said, I think if you got anything, tell the FBI branch in Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, and the good news is I think the Chiefs actually listened to the podcast before, because what we told them to do, they listened to it and it worked out. They're holding up a Lombardi. They ran the ball effectively, and they actually even outrushed the Chiefs, 158-115. They averaged 6 yards a carry.
You mean the Eagles?
Yeah, what did I say?
They outrushed the Eagles.
Yeah.
The Chiefs.
Yeah, the Chiefs outrushed the Eagles.
You said the Chiefs outrushed the Chiefs.
Oh.
Yeah, well, you said the Chiefs outrushed the Chiefs.
Yeah, okay, well, yeah, I did not mean to say that. The Chiefs outrushed the Eagles. Sometimes when I start talking, my brain doesn't go as fast as my mouth, and we get things like that. But yes, the Chiefs outrushed the Eagles, 158-115. Mahomes was the biggest factor. It felt like those runs reminded me of him when they played Tennessee in the AFC Championship when he won his first Super Bowl. And, he didn't have the ball a whole lot in the first half. It kind of felt like it was teetering on it could have played out like it did for the Eagles in the NFC Championship game, but the Chiefs were able to go down and get a score right out of halftime and then hold them to a field goal, which, the Eagles' last drive of the first half and first drive of the second half, they were able to force them to kick field goals, and that ended up being the difference. Where Grant said that, force them to kick field goals in the red zone, and you're going to win the game. And they did.
You brought up the Chiefs outrushed the Eagles. Eagles running backs were just terrible, and credit the Chiefs D-line, but the only reason they had over 50 yards rushing was basically Hurts. And in the second half, they almost went away from that, it seemed like, outside of his maybe 1 yard scampers, whatever it was, like his little pushes forward with the 3rd and 1, 4th and 2, whatever the hell it was. But it was crazy. They completely went away from like the game plan that was working in the first half. It was really, really weird.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's part of what we talked about too, with Sirianni being there for the first time and trying to be too cute with things and over preparing, where he thought that maybe they could exploit the Chiefs secondary a little bit more, but he wasn't able to. And the Chiefs, they did a really good job of tackling. That's another thing too that I don't think has been discussed enough too, and like all the other big broadcasts is the Chiefs tackled really well. There were a couple on those third downs where their corners made plays when they had to, where in the previous games and playoff games that they just would go for the big hit instead of wrapping up. This time they wrapped up, and look what happens. You wrap up, you're going to make the tackle and force them to kick or put them in a tough spot.
Well, and also for me, guys, it looked like the Eagles' running game. A lot of that was, like Ethan said, Jalen doing legs, but it almost looked like it was pass plays where the Chiefs didn't rush with any integrity, and they were pass rushing, and they weren't staying in their lanes, and they're running past Jalen. And then Jalen looked at it like, oh, okay, well, they're going to run right by me if they're playing man coverage. I'm just going to take this open lane and run for, 12 to 15 yards. I think in the second half, they changed it up a little bit where they rushed with more integrity and they stayed in their lanes and they didn't rush past the quarterback. And they were able to kind of contain, Jalen there and slow him down. And another thing, like what Ethan said with the Chiefs holding the Eagles running backs down, their running backs only averaged 2.6 yards a carry on the ground yesterday. And that's the Eagles' bread and butter. Because if once they get that running game going with their running backs, then you have that RPO game. You're able to get Goddard more involved and hit A.J. Brown over the middle of the field and Devontae Smith. So the Chiefs did a nice job of slowing down the Eagles, bread and butter and their number one part of their offense, and they were able to slow them down just enough, to get a couple stops and win that game. And then lastly, it just looked like the Chiefs wanted to be the more physical team yesterday. They took these 2 weeks. They wanted to establish the line of scrimmage when they had the ball, and when the Eagles had the ball, they, like I just said, they weren't going to let the Eagles get their running game going with their running backs, and it kind of looked like they wanted it more. And then also, I think if you look at the way they talked these last two games, they were pissed off. They bought into, hey, we're the underdogs. Nobody believes us. We want to come in here. We want to whoop some people. And, it worked out for them. It's crazy how sports is such a mindset, game you play. Even if you are supposed to be the favorites and you have Andy Reid and you have Patrick Mahomes, if you tell yourself people don't believe in you, you can go out and you can kick anyone's ass and win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Where I think they heard the noise. I think they probably heard that they feel like people talking that they aren't a tough physical football team, and you hear that for 2 weeks. Similarly, where, I think the most dangerous team in sports is getting a favorite to think that they're the underdog. And you basically just woke up a sleeping giant. You look at that's exactly what the Chiefs are is, they've been the class of the NFL the last 5 years since Mahomes has taken over as the starting quarterback. And, they trade Tyreek Hill in the offseason. They lose to the Colts. They lost to the Bengals and the Bills, two good teams. But, I think everybody on here didn't really expect the Chiefs to make it. When we thought it was going to be the Bills or the Bengals, or I don't even remember who Ethan had coming out for his Super Bowl prediction at the beginning of the year. But
I think it was the Ravens.
Okay. That probably sounds right, actually. I think you might be right there.
I think that's right.
And people say it enough times that they can't win. They aren't the team they used to. They're missing Tyreek Hill. They're not doing anything. And they just kind of quietly went to work and just got better each week. And they found themselves in the 1 seed, and what do you know? They get home field advantage again, and they go and play in one of the best Super Bowls of our time. I don't know if it's one of the best. I think if they don't, that pass interference, I think kind of overshadowed it because
defensive
that's
holding.
all everybody's talking. Or yeah, defensive holding. Excuse me. That's kind of what everybody is talking about, that call, which overshadows how great of a game this game actually was, because it had everything. It was the Chiefs down, they came back, the Eagles responded, score, tie it up, and then that play happens, which Bradbury admitted that, yeah, it was a hold. I thought they were going to let it go, but it is what it is. I think Eagles tried to do the right thing to just let him score, and then just a tremendous heads-up play with McKinnon, who has played a lot of football, and just went down and said, "You know what? We're gonna go let Bucker win this on a chip shot."
Well, and then two things to add on that, Dylan. Just real quick on that, that McKinnon run, like you said, he had a post-game interview, I believe, is with James Palmer on NFL Network, and he said, "This is something we practice every single day. Less than 2 minutes left in the game, your opponent doesn't have any timeouts. When you run towards the end zone, slide and take yourself down at the 2-yard line." So how great of a coaching job on this offensive staff. Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, Matt Nagy, everyone, whoever, I don't know who the running backs coach is to say, hey, when situational football, when they don't have any timeouts left and it's tied, slide at the 2. Give yourself up, and we're going to take this thing down, to 10 seconds. But then also, if you remember, before that, when the Eagles had to use their last 2 timeouts, I believe it was on second and third down.
Yep.
Or with that, or sorry, first and second down, and then Jarek got that run on third down. That whole game, the Eagles, they were letting that play clock go from 40 to 0. I think they said if we can eat up as much clock and score touchdowns, that gives the Chiefs less of an opportunity to score because they won't have the ball. Well, they played a little too close to the fire a couple times. They took that one delay game, and then Dallas Goedert got the touchdown, or the first down.
Yep.
But then they had to call a timeout later on in that drive. Had they not wasted that first timeout, after Jarek slides, they can take a timeout, and you look towards the end of the game. Instead of getting the ball back with 6 seconds left, they have 47 or 46 seconds. So a mistake the Eagles made in the early part of the second half affected that game, because they had one less timeout to use. Dylan, like you said, with Bradbury, it was a close call. But one, you admitted that you tugged his jersey and you hoped they wouldn't have called it. And two, in a situation like that, don't make the ref decide to make a call or not. And, like you said, he said he tugged on the jersey. So, and the ref saw it and he threw the flag. So don't even put yourself in that situation and put your team in a bad spot by making a play like that.
Yeah, well, and another thing, too, is that it's those little details, too, because Bill Belichick talked about it and Rob Ninkovich talked about it on his, I don't know if he has a radio show or not, or wherever he talked about how, anytime the Patriots were playing a team that was wearing their white jersey, Belichick always made them wear white gloves so they could get away with that. And you look at what the Eagles were wearing, they were all wearing dark gloves. Who knows? I'm not saying that changes the outcome, but it could have. I mean, it's little things like that you don't think about, but it would make a difference where it's going to be a lot tougher for a ref to see if he's got white gloves. You don't know what happened.
I've never heard that. That's actually genius.
Yeah, that's why Bill has six with the Patriots, 2 with the Giants.
6.
Yeah, it's not terrible.
Well, and another part in this game that I didn't understand that Ethan called out yesterday was this: end of the first half, 15 seconds left. The Eagles have a timeout. I think was it a 1st and 10 play? Their one play, they throw a little 3-yard crossing pattern, and the receiver gets tackled right away, blows it up, and they let the clock down to 4 seconds. They take a field goal before you go into halftime. You have 15 seconds left. You have a timeout, and you have A.J. Brown. Be aggressive. Take 2 or 3 shots at the end zone. Who knows? Maybe you get a pass interference. Maybe you get a defensive holding, and the ball's at the 1-yard line. With that offensive line game and that in the rugby scrum that they call a QB sneak, you're up 28-14 at halftime. And that for some reason, Nick Sirianni, a very aggressive coach, which is awesome to see. His players buy into it. Before the half, they kind of laid down like a dead dog, and it came back to bite him in the ass, because you never know what could have happened. Or they could have thrown an interception like the Niners did against the Chiefs in the regular season. They don't get any points before the half. But Ethan brought that up yesterday, and I agreed with him. I don't like that, how they just kind of lied down and died at the end of the first half. Be aggressive. Throw it to AJ Brown. Go get a 50-50
especially with
ball.
who they have at quarterback on the other sideline. You're not going to win being conservative against 15.
Exactly.
You're just not going to happen.
Exactly.
You know, talking kind of about the QB sneak and everything for how the how Philly does it. At what point is some defender, some safety just going to come run up and do like a Troy Polamalu and just try and deck him as soon as he snaps it? What's the worst thing that's going to happen? He gets the first down anyways. Like, who cares? Like, try and make a play.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if they.
I'm with you.
There's a discussion about outlawing it though too, because they were already talking about that for next year is because of that safety issue aspect of it.
Well, you're saying. But the one thing I don't like about that is, if you want to have your offensive linemen get low and push, I'm fine with that. But having the two guys staying right behind Jalen and pushing them forward, that's not football.
Yeah.
That's rugby. If you want to do that, Jalen in Philadelphia, go to Australia, go to New Zealand, and play that sport. But that's not football. I mean, it was kind of getting old yesterday listening to Greg Olson talk about how great this QB sneak team is. It's like, no, they're good at pushing the pile from behind. Because, would they still have gotten a few of those? Yeah, they would have. But a lot of that extra push wasn't Jalen because he can squat 600 pounds. It's because he had two grown men behind him pushing him forward.
Greg was terrible yesterday.
That's just kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Greg was off yesterday. That whole broadcast seemed very, I'll say it here, very NFC, very Eagles favorite.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that broadcast was off yesterday.
Okay. I truthfully didn't get to listen to a lot because there's just so much talking at Super Bowl parties where you're not always able to hear it. That was kind of my situation. So I wasn't able to hear a lot of it. So I guess, I don't know. The only part I really remember is is when he was talking about the Bradbury hold, which we already discussed. But it was there. Part of me agrees that, yeah, it shouldn't come to that. But at the end of the day, it's football. Things are going to happen. If you need to be good enough to overcome officiating mistakes, and Eagles couldn't do it. And Grant,
Dylan,
you talked about
too.
It is the time of possession where they let it run down, 40 all the way down to 0, which is great. Yeah, you don't want to put the ball in Pat Mahomes' hands, but you got to come away with touchdowns. And there were those two drives that they had to end the first half, and then at the end, or to start the second half, where it was 21-24 and the Eagles get the field goal. Who knows? It's a different game. That if they get the Eagles get a touchdown there, it's 31-21, and then the Chiefs go down and score, make it 31-28, and they get a stop. But if the Eagles get a touchdown out of that, instead of kicking a field goal to win it, they're kicking a field goal to tie it.
Well, what was it? Wasn't it a third down on that drive where he threw it? It was like, 3rd and 11, and he threw it short of the sticks? That's correct, right? He threw it to Gainwell or someone underneath or pass.
Yeah.
And then they kicked the field goal. If that's Kirk Cousins, my God, those announcers are absolutely crucifying him. With Hurts, oh, wow. Throws it a little hit, nothing. Like crickets.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's because Kirk plays for the Vikings and he's over.
And then, guys,
I think he's overpaid, and it was prime time. It's prime time Kirk. But you're absolutely right.
This is the NFL.
It's unfortunate.
I was going to say, guys, another aspect of this game that no one's really talking about is in football, there's 3 phases: offense, defense, and special teams. Well, one team yesterday got a turnover and scored a touchdown off that, and another team took a punt back 65 yards and set their offense up for success. And another team, which averaged 4 sacks a game on the season, didn't get 1 sack on the opposing team's quarterback, and their special teams was bad all year. So you got to credit the Chiefs, for making those plays when they needed to. And on that Jalen fumble, even if he wasn't trying to switch hands, Nick would have been there, and who knows, maybe Nick could have gotten his hands and knocked that ball down right away. But he was able to pick it up and score. And a good midseason acquisition to get, Kadarius Toney for the Chiefs, and he brings that punt back 65 yards. They played a complete game yesterday in all three phases. And that's another reason why they won this game too.
Yep. And they complimentary
for some
football.
reason the New York Giants said, "Oh, we don't need this talented first rounder." And they played complimentary football, and they wanted it. They wanted it more. And they were the better team for 60 minutes. The Eagles had a great first half, and they won that. But when they needed it most in the second half, they scored 11 points, and the Chiefs scored 24.
Yeah. So let's go back to halftime there. How are you, Grant, the Chiefs fan? How are you feeling at halftime? Were you nervous, or were you kind of like, yeah, the Eagles got a little bit of control, but we still have PM 15, and there's a lot of game left. If we get a score here, we're right back in it.
Yeah, I was right there. We still got 15. The one thing that did worry me though a little bit was slightly rolled that ankle before halftime, and with the long halftime, there's plenty of time for him to get cold and that ankle to lock up. And you always, in the back of your head, you're thinking, oh, is that Eagles pass rush eventually going to get there? Are they going to get there? But again, in return, I was like this at the coin toss. Andy deferred for a reason. Get the ball to start the second half, go down, get a touchdown, and get a stop. And what's the first thing they do? They go down, and they force the Eagles to go 3 and out. And in the second half, and then they're down 21-20. 21-20. Sorry, they get the field goal. The Eagles do. I'm sorry, but then the Chiefs go down and they get another touchdown. At that point, it's like it's game on. The Chiefs have been here. They've done that. They got PM15. They got Andy. And if you watch this Chiefs team all year, guys, they give up points in the first half, but then they're going to make some adjustments and they're going to make teams slow down, and then they force that 3 and out after the field goal. And the offense couldn't be stopped. So, with Patrick in this offense, you're always going to say, hey, we're in this. But, I was a little nervous. I'm not going to lie. A little nervous there just because this Eagles team is so complete. And even though they weren't able to establish the running game with their running backs in the first half, you're worried that big offensive line was going to maybe wear the Chiefs down. But they didn't, and they're fighters. And that's just kind of, like I've said all year, guys, how I would describe this team is they're just resilient. They don't quit. This is another game. Hey, they got down early, but they're going to fight, scratch, and claw, and they're going to play it for 60 minutes. Kind of like what they say in basketball. You win basketball games in the fourth quarter, and the Chiefs are going to hang around, and in the fourth quarter, they're going to hit you in the nose when you're tired and you're not ready to play, and they're going to pull out a lot of these wins. I mean, like you said, Dylan, but there are 3 losses this year were by a combined 10 points.
Yep.
With Patrick and Andy and this team and how resilient they are, they're never out of a game.
Yep. And the other part too, Mahomes only had 1 incompletion in the second half too, and it was a throwaway.
Mm-hmm. It was a throwaway.
Yeah, and guys like Juju stepped up. The previous 2 playoff games, it was MVS. This week, it was Juju. Toney, he only had the 1 catch, but it was for a touchdown. Kelsey did his thing, and then
Sky Moore had a couple catches in the fourth
Sky
quarter.
Moore, yep. And then Toney is
Sky Moore.
Toney had the catch and then the punt return, and then the running backs were threats as well. It was, like you said, Grant, it was a complete game for the Chiefs, especially on offense, where they looked like the Chiefs of the old, and they're going to enter. Well, they already are going to be the favorites for next year already, and the Eagles there's some question marks there. They're going to have to pay Jalen Hurts in the upcoming year or so. They've got about 10 free agents, so. It's hard to say. I think Jalen Hurts is an impressive player. And I think if you're I think too.
I was just going to say, is Fletcher Cox going to retire?
Jason Kelsey also.
Is Jason Kelsey going to retire? What about Lane Johnson?
I was going to say, is he ever going to be healthy?
Yeah, and Sue was a 1-year rental.
I don't know. He's going to have another groin surgery right now.
Yeah, he's having surgery. They came out and said it.
Yeah, Linville Joseph, Ndamukong Suh.
Is Reddick
Hopefully they go down to the Cowboys
again? He didn't do that in Tennessee.
Yeah, well, and it sounds like I think I heard on heard today that he was upset with his lack of targets in the second half. Was AJ Brown?
Shut up.
Well, he's going to be there a long time. I mean, he signed a new contract.
Yeah,
and that's about as diva a receiver as it gets right there.
Yeah, and I think with Jalen Hurts, I wouldn't be surprised if he takes a team-friendly deal just by the type of guy he is and just
absolutely not
how he handles himself. I think if he's smart, I think he would do what would best would be to build that around him. Something that Dak Prescott should have done is taken less money so they can have other pieces around him, because I think that's the key to Jalen's success is having more talent around him.
They're already throwing $50 million plus around his name. Like, he ain't taking anything less. Like, I get being a better teammate, but I don't think it's ever going to happen unless you're like some veteran that actually has gotten his already at some point.
No,
like a Kirk Cousins.
I'm with you, Ethan. These guys, they're going after the bag.
Yeah.
I mean, I read a report today that the Eagles organization, they've had internal conversations. They hope they can get a deal done with Jalen before Justin Herbert. You know why? Because whatever Herbert gets, Jalen's going to get more. And then that's only going to cap-strap the Eagles in a worse situation.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It could happen. Well, I guess we'll see.
But Dylan,
and then Joe Burrow's going to be getting a contract too, probably.
And none of those guys should get more than Burrow.
Yeah, so those three teams are absolutely – No, and look, those three teams are going to be in trouble because you're going to have to pay these guys and you're going to have to let people go. It's going to be a delicate situation. I heard they might trade T just because they got to pay Burrow.
You almost have to.
And,
I know
you got Sam Hubbard coming up and all these other guys.
But you just don't have the money.
Yeah, and Grant disappeared. But, yeah,
guys,
the way the receiver –
look at what the Chiefs did this year.
The way the receivers, there's so many receivers in the NFL or in the draft that you can get in mid to late rounds that have been productive right out of the gate. You're almost better off to just get a contract out of them and then send them on their way, because usually after they get the bag, their production drops off.
I'm not trying to change.
Well, guys, look at who just won the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Yeah.
The Chiefs, they got rid of Tyreek Hill. You sign Juju on a 1-year deal. You bring MVS in for a 3-year deal. And then you draft Sky Moore. You sign Justin Watson. You trade for Kadarius Toney. And, you have Travis Kelce. So he's your stud there. They just proved if you have an all-pro at quarterback, like let's say the Bengals do, if you have your one stud, Jamar and Travis, as long as you get good pieces around there and a good running game, you can win the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And another person, too, that we're not talking about that we haven't mentioned yet is give it up for Andrew Wiley, who was labeled the weakest lineman on the Chiefs and probably had the best game on the Chiefs' offensive line. That guy, I'm sure he's one that probably heard the noise and was challenged all week in meetings that, hey, we need you to play your best, and he delivered.
I can count on two hands how many times I saw him yesterday after a pass protection throw Hassan Reddick onto the ground and fall on top of him. He was throwing pancakes out left and right. And after a while, that wears on a defensive player's mind. Hey, this guy's kicking my ass. I got a 310-pound man falling on top of me after every play. I can't win. So, yeah, Dylan, that was huge. And, the Chiefs' last Super Bowl appearance, they gave up 3 sacks and Mahomes was hit probably 20 times. Yesterday, they gave up 0 sacks and he was pressured, 11 times all game?
Yeah. Well, okay, so we might have a lead here, guys. Is some of the Chiefs or the Eagles D linemen, are they still in the State Farm Stadium turf from being pancaked. You know, that's something you got to look into. And that field was not great. And I don't know if that had something to do with it either, but the Chiefs also had to deal with it as well. But, you know, looking in the State Farm Stadium turf might be a play. It might be a good start.
I'm right there with you.